It wasn't the movies. It wasn't the red carpets. It wasn't the applause. The moment that truly broke the internet came down to something so small, so simple, yet so powerful that it shook people across the world. It was a pause, a trembling voice, and 5 fragile words from Johnny Depp. Do you really love me? When you hear those words, they don't sound like they should come from a man like him. This is Johnny Depp, the Hollywood giant, the man who turned characters into icons. Jack Sparrow, Edward Scissorhands, the Mad Hatter, roles that will live forever. He's been adored, idolized, and celebrated for decades. He has walked through screaming crowds, flashing cameras, and endless praise. But in that moment, he wasn't an actor. He wasn't a character. He wasn't the untouchable movie star. He was just a man, stripped down to his most human state, asking the one question we all carry deep inside: am I really loved? That's why it struck so deep. That's why the video went viral. That's why people around the world couldn't stop watching it. Because his question wasn't just his, it was ours. Haven't you asked yourself the same thing at some point in your life? Late at night, lying awake, or after a fight with someone you care about, or when you look around and wonder who would stand with you if everything else disappeared. We've all been there. We've all thought it. We've all felt that sting of doubt. And here was Johnny Depp, a man who seems to have everything, saying it out loud. Now imagine that moment. The stage is alive. The crowd is buzzing. Thousands of people are screaming, holding signs, trying to capture the night on their phones. The lights are bright, the energy is electric. On the surface, it looks like just another night in Johnny's world. But then, something shifts. His smile fades for just a second. His shoulders drop ever so slightly. His voice, normally steady, wavers. And then, almost like he can't hold it in any longer, he leans closer to the mic and asks, "Do you really love me?" At first, silence. A collective breath. And then the crowd erupts, louder than before. People scream back, some with tears streaming down their faces, some shouting his name like a promise. For them, it wasn't a performance anymore. It wasn't about characters. It wasn't about Hollywood. It was about him. It was about Johnny. The man. The human being. And that's what makes this moment unforgettable. Because in our world, celebrities are painted as larger-than-life figures. They're untouchable. They're strong. They don't need reassurance, right? But the truth is, fame doesn't erase doubt. Money doesn't silence loneliness. Applause doesn't guarantee love. You can be standing on a stage with thousands of people chanting your name and still feel like you're standing there alone. That's what Johnny revealed. That's the crack in the mask that let the real man show through. And people didn't just see it, they felt it. They felt their own insecurities mirrored in his words. Because, "Do you really love me?" is never just about love. It's about worth. It's about belonging. It's about the need we all have to know we matter, not just for what we give, not just for what we achieve, but for who we are when all of that is stripped away. Think about your own life for a moment. Have you ever been in a relationship where you weren't sure if the other person was with you because of who you are, or because of what you did for them? Have you ever been surrounded by friends, laughing, smiling, but deep inside you wondered, would they still be here if I had nothing to offer? It's a heavy question. But it's real. And Johnny, in front of the entire world, had the courage to ask it out loud. That courage is what turned this from just a fleeting moment into something unforgettable. Because most of us hide that question. We bury it deep down. We distract ourselves. We tell ourselves we don't care. But we do. And when someone like Johnny lets it slip, it gives all of us permission to admit it too. Now, let's look closer. Why did this matter so much? Because for years, Johnny has been in the spotlight. His life has been magnified, his choices picked apart, his struggles displayed for the world to see. He has faced criticism, doubt, and betrayal on a scale most of us can't even imagine. So when he asked that question, it wasn't just about his fans, it was about everything he had been through. It was about wondering, after all the noise, after all the headlines, after all the battles, if people still loved him, not the myth, not the roles, but him. And the truth is, millions of people did. The roar of that crowd wasn't fake. The tears in their eyes weren't for show. They weren't cheering because he was Jack Sparrow. They weren't cheering because he was a Hollywood star. They were cheering because they saw the man behind it all, the one who dared to be vulnerable. But here's the bigger picture. Why did the internet explode over this? Why did people who weren't even at that event feel so connected? Because this wasn't just Johnny's story. It was ours. Every viewer who watched that clip thought of their own life. Every person who heard his trembling voice remembered the moments they questioned their own worth. The clip spread, not because it was shocking, but because it was true. And here's the lesson. Love is the one thing we all crave, and it's also the one thing we all doubt. We can achieve success, wealth, recognition, and still lie awake at night wondering if we're truly loved. And Johnny, in 5 words, reminded the world of that truth. Think about how different that night could have been. He could have smiled, waved, said thank you, and left. Just another performance, just another memory. But instead, he gave us something real. Something raw. And that's why we're still talking about it now. So what does this mean for us? Maybe it's a reminder not to take love for granted. Maybe it's a push to tell the people in our lives how much they mean to us before they ever have to wonder. Maybe it's about realizing that even the strongest people around us, the ones who look like they don't need anything, still need reassurance. And here's a question for you. If you were standing there in that crowd, if Johnny looked straight at you and asked, "Do you really love me?" how would you answer? Would you scream louder than the rest? Would you tell him yes, over and over, until he believed it? And more importantly, who in your own life needs to hear that from you right now? Because maybe the real power of this moment isn't about Johnny at all. Maybe it's about us. About realizing how much weight a simple reassurance carries. About understanding that sometimes, the people we assume know how we feel actually don't. And maybe they're waiting. Just like Johnny, for someone to tell them, "Yes, I really love you." Think about that. How many relationships could be healed if those words were said more often? How many doubts could be erased? How many silent struggles could be lifted if people felt secure in that one truth? And maybe that's why Johnny's moment matters. Because it wasn't polished. It wasn't perfect. It was messy, it was emotional, it was human. And that's exactly why it will be remembered. So let me leave you with this. Sometimes, the most powerful things in life aren't the grand speeches or the big gestures. They're the quiet pauses. The trembling voices. The moments when someone drops their guard and shows us who they really are. Johnny Depp gave the world one of those moments. And the question he asked is one we all carry. So the only question left is, how would you answer?